this is, nobody would come to see God, but Jimmy Buffett, they'd be all over it. Maybe he is God, I don't know. What is it? What's about my hair? Nothing wrong with my hair. My hair is just naturally the way I am. Yeah, you know, I mean, I tell you the truth. For those of you who don't know, I put a little darning on my hair, just you know, for the corporate power structure. The corporate power structure, all the corporate executives have dark hair, you know. And when you're a great power structure, they look at you like you're on your way out. So I put a little schmaltz on. So Joan got me to a beauty parlor a few weeks ago, and it started to, you know, the roots started showing through, the silver threads among the whatever. The other night, she decided she's going to do it. So she did it, and I'm telling you, there was stuff in my eyes. I was sneezing, I was spitting. The water was on. It is true. And then you started laughing so hard that you almost had an accident, right? Because
but Billy, tell them what you had to do. You didn't do it right.
I was supposed to wait 20 minutes. You wait 20 minutes, and then your hair sets, and it's the exact color. I waited 25, so it's a little darker, you know, but it'll last that long.
That's his only job to time it.
That was it. That was my only job.
Well, I got even with the one I lost.
All right, let's get going here. I want to tell you a couple things that I put on the back shelf there. Did you get a chance to watch The Heart of Healing on Turner Broadcasting? Okay. You see, that gives us a lot of credibility. But there's something here I put back that they sent us, The Heart of Healing sent us a little booklet about the program, and I put it on the back thing. But this is what it says: Mastering Fears. Research suggests that all of our experiences, positive and negative, have an effect on our immune system. And we've been talking about that here for years. Positive emotions may strengthen immunity, while fear, depression, and other dark states of mind tend to weaken immune functions. When we overcome our fears, we not only reduce stress and develop a greater sense of control in our lives, we may also give our immune systems a boost. In research directed by Dr. Albert Bandura, I talked about a woman who was terrified by snakes, and when she mastered her phobia, they found and measured a 25% increase in her white blood cell count. So you see, and here, who's the peddler of fear? Religion. That's all they teach: fear, guilt. And then everybody gets sick, and the hospitals are filled, and then they send priests and ministers to administer to the sick. They made them sick. Why don't you leave them alone and they'll get better? I'll never forget the time I was in the hospital right after we got married. You know, something went wrong, and a priest walked in. I was ready to go out the window because you know, that's not a good omen, you know, when they come in to see you. What is this? Because those guys. One other thing that I found I thought was interesting. Was a guy communicated with me about, you know, stuff we're into. And I wrote him back, and I told him about beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And he wrote me back and thought that I made this up and, you know, this new age stuff and everything. So I got on CompuServe, which has a dictionary and encyclopedia. And I said, the heck with this, you know. So I printed it out, and I sent it to the guy. I said, here, go to a library, go to a dictionary, you know, and find it. But interestingly enough, Albert, I wanted to share this with you. It's got beta wave, which is a frequency of 13 to 30 cycles per second. It is associated with an alert waking state, but can also occur as a sign of anxiety or apprehension. And being said here, that if you get into a situation where you exceed maybe 30 cycles per second, you can do anything. You're capable of anything. I mean, you're literally freaking out. It doesn't make any difference whether you're going to pray or whatever you're going to do. If the cycles are running rampant. Now, when you get into meditation, you go down into alpha, which is a smooth, regular electrical oscillation when a person is awake and relaxed. As recorded by the electroencephalograph, alpha rhythms have a frequency of 8 to 13. So now you move in your meditation. But this is the point that really struck me. See, when you're at beta, you're over here at the left side of the brain where we're all freaking out about 30 cycles down to 24 cycles per second. You move in meditation to alpha, okay? And you go down from about 13 cycles per second. This is what the Bible is talking about in allegorical terms. As you move to the right hemisphere of the brain, you go over to theta, which is 8 cycles per second. This is the Red Sea. When you cross the Red Sea, you move over there into theta when you start moving down into 8 cycles per second, and you're moving to the promised land. This is what casting your energy to the right side. The next one is delta, okay, which is 4 cycles per second. That's nirvana. That's heaven. That's the promised land. See? But there's something really interesting, which I don't know how many people have caught this, but I caught it right away, and which is theta here. Now listen to this one. A frequency of 4 to 8 equals recorded chiefly in the hippocampus, whatever the heck that is, of carnivorous mammals when they are alerted or aroused. Interesting, what it's saying is they've measured this in an animal when it's alerted, or what would alert it or arouse it? Instinct. Do you see what I'm saying to you? When you reach at this point, then you become alert or aroused. They could also say enlightened. You know? In other words, the animal doesn't know, but something tells it, hey, you better hunt, you better do this, it's time to eat. And all of a sudden, this kicks in and they're able to measure it. And then you get over here to delta, which is a slow brain wave, fewer than 6 cycles per second, that emanates from the forward portion of the brain and is associated with a deep sleep in normal adults, also called delta rhythm. And this here is exactly what you're talking about when you're in bondage to Egypt. You move across the desert, you cross the Red Sea, and then you go into the Promised Land. You move from beta to delta. There is no religious experience at all possible unless the brain waves start to modify as and so, you know, here it is, and I thank you for that CompuServe for that. All right? Well, it's an interesting thing, but I thought it was really interesting that when you get into that theta, which is the part of what we would call God, or the movement of God, here in animals they measure it as a part of the instinctive reaction. Let's talk about the part that we came here to discuss today, and that's parents, the beginning of trouble. Carl Jung was an associate of Sigmund Freud. Carl Jung was an eminent psychoanalyst, as of course I don't have to tell you about Sigmund Freud. They had a splitting of the way. Carl Jung really went, took off into kind of a mystical journey, and he really got into it big time. Carl Jung, probably one of the most preeminent psychoanalysts that the world has ever known, was a deep mystic of the highest sort. He really was. And Carl Jung found what he quoted as the location of God, and he pinpointed this location of what we call God as the right hemisphere of the brain. Okay? Carl Jung coined the term that is part of our makeup and part of our lives, is the part that bothers us constantly. He called it the shadow. Okay? The shadow. And it's the negative parts of our personality. And this is what Jung talked about. He says that we all have these negative parts of our personality. That's our shadow, and it's individual to each one of us. Okay? And he says that in a child that lives wherever with you or whomever in the family, a child, when that child can never fulfill the expectations of others, he then starts to act out what we consider to be unacceptable behavior and becomes actually a scapegoat for the shadow projections of others. Just think of what he just said. A child's in a home and a family. The child is not capable of living up to the expectations of the family. Where do the expectations come from? The expectations come from demands placed on that child by a parent, okay, to try to achieve and to accomplish what the parent himself or herself has never been able to achieve or accomplish. And yet makes these demands and is not able. See, in other words, you see in the child a reflection of yourself, and you attempt to make that child something that you could never become. And you've never been able to do it, and then that child is never going to be able to do it, but you're going to insist that the child do it. And then the child will start to act out this unacceptable behavior. And the reason that you're insisting this child must be this way is because that's what your religion taught you, that's what your school taught you, that's what your parents taught you was acceptable. And they never were able to act it out. Don't you say? Nobody has ever been able to reach this golden place, and yet we forced onto one another the fact that you've got to do this, you've got to act this way, you've got to be this way. And what we have done is create an absolute era and ages of neurotics. Everybody trying to reach something, and if I'm not able to reach it, when I have to, and you hear people say it, I was never able to have these things, and I'm going to see that you do. And the point is whether you want to or not. It's never a question of whether you want to do this or not. You're going to do it. You're going, I'm going to see that you have the things that I never could have. And basically he winds up being a psychiatrist. People according to Sigmund Freud, who are very self-conscious emotionally are the children who had to pick up and carry the family shadow. He says, no matter what, you'll always find at the root of a very self-conscious person, a person who has had to pick up and carry with them the negativity that the family couldn't deal with themselves. See, the father, the mother can never turn around and say, it's me! I'm the one that's got to change something in here. Instead of doing that, we'll say, no, we'll dump it on the kid. The change in our family is going to come with this child. And so now all of a sudden we put this child into a position of it being extremely self-conscious. Carl Jung states we are totally blind most often, listen to this, about how we contribute as parents to the unhappy lives of children. And remember, each one of you at one time was a child. And how other people who couldn't interact with one another. I know in my own family, I had two adults. I had a father, had a mother, and they spent the whole time that I was trying to kill one another. It never stopped. And you're right in the middle of all of the, I mean literal blood crashing through banisters, cops, everybody, people getting smacked against them. I came in one time, and my mother was caught in a corner, and my father was literally banging her with his fist, and I mean, just like you'd see and she sank right to the floor. Blood all over the place. And, you know, this is the point that I'm saying. And then they would send me to school and to church so that I could grow up. And I was to say, why the hell did you grow up? Yeah. But see, it happens everywhere. And then when the kids come out from these things that are, and they're always secret. So never let anybody know. If anybody ever came near the house, everybody just, shh, you know, and then you'd walk in. We used to have the cops. The cops would be at our house on relatives. And I can see them to this day, leather jackets and boots, the Newark police many years ago. And they'd come in and everything was quiet. My father would put on a robe and come down the stairs. Hello, officers. Hi, Mr. Donahue. Let's see. Well, we got a call. There was everything okay? Well, certainly. And it was. But inside the shaking was going on, inside the terror was going on, and inside the memories go on, and you'll never, ever. And so then you have to live this out. Because there was never an attempt made on the part of the parents, there's never an attempt made to turn within themselves and say, what is wrong? What am I doing here? So I create this lunacy, and the child has to live this out. Carl Jung told the story of a very distinguished man who was a Quaker. And, you know, he couldn't imagine that he had ever done anything in his life that was wrong. I mean, he was absolutely, he wouldn't harm anything. But he couldn't deal with the negativity that was his own. He could never admit that there was anything that he could do wrong because he was a Quaker. He was holy. He spent all his time in church. He spent all his time in the Bible. And he was on and on and on. And Jung said, and do you know what happened to his children? The son became a thief and the daughter a prostitute. And the reason, Carl Jung says, is because the father would not come to grips with his own shadow, so his children had to live out the dark side which he ignored. It was never him, it's always them. You know, it's always the kind of thing, don't do this. And the kid says, why? Because I said so. Why did you say so? Because. There's no reason. There is something inherently negative within the one who's giving the guidance. And so the children have to live out this type of disaster. Let's take a look at the Bible for a minute and let me just show you. Go to page 557. Look at the book of Proverbs. It says in Proverbs chapter 2 on page 557. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Sure, that's true. But I'll tell you something else. Train up a child in the chaos and lunacy of the dark shadows of your own mind, and he'll also not be able to depart from that. And you'll carry that. And each one of you has a negative aspect of your personality. You can sit here and look at me, but each one of you has a negative aspect of your personality that's related and directly attached to things that happened to you when you were a child. And things that were brought upon you as a child in your own home. Most people believe that when you say train up a child, that means fire and brimstone religion, with all of the guilt and the fear connected with it. But the results are obvious. Look what it says here in this thing we read this morning. It was on television. Fear destroys the immune system. And so we got all kinds of diseases. We got all kinds of AIDS. We got all kinds of cancers. We got all kinds of things. People are in hospitals taking all kinds of drugs and all of this kind of stuff. And what do you find out? Why not get to the root of what it is? And you perpetuate these things. You're not even allowed to turn it for an instant and talk about these great religious institutions who pump this fear and guilt and fear and guilt into the heads of people. Carl Jung says, each person must deal and recognize their own shadow. And he says, so often in parenting, children are taking on the shadows that their parents can't deal with. The wonderful thing is when you come into this place, you don't come here to learn necessarily, although I hope you do. You come here to dump. You come here to sit and in the quietness of the meditation and dump all of this debris that has been piled inside of you from years and years of struggling with parents and systems of government and religions and all of these things, which are based on the most barbaric theologies of superstition and given to you as gospel. This is the gospel of the Lord. A fish swallowed a man, and he lived in his stomach for 3 days. He puked, and an evangelist came out. Thus saith the Lord. And you were faithful. Yeah, I believe it. I believe every word of it. I don't doubt it. All of these stories. 2 of every animal in New York. Yes, I believe it. He took 2 of every animal in the world, put them in a boat. I believe it. They went to the ocean, the Red Sea, and it opened. Oh, sure. I believe it. You know, doggone well you don't believe it. It's all a lie. It's all a fib because it's all mythology. It's all allegory talking about deep symbols of the human mind. But I believe it. Nobody dares say they don't believe it. And so we keep acting out. We all keep acting out our own, and we keep looking. So what does religion do in order to deal with the shadow? They never say to you, the shadow exists within you. They say the shadow is the devil. Who is this? A power somewhere that is unseen, that exists in the cosmos. Lurking behind this man is a devil, ready to strike.
Well, that's me, his wife.
We have finally found the devil. Me, his wife. Okay. But you see, the problem basically is, do you know something? What she said was much wisdom. Much wisdom. See? What they had the country song once, The Devil in the Blue Satin Dress or whatever it is. Or Chris Christopherson's song, The Silver-Tongued Devil and I. It's exactly true. It's like, I was listening to this Kreskin, you know, the mentalist the other day on radio, and he was exploring a haunted house. And the announcer said to him, Kreskin, come on, tell me the truth. Do you believe that such things as ghosts exist? And Kreskin paused and he said, yes, they do, in the minds of people. And Kreskin said, I have been in places where they had seances, where things actually happened. But he says, you know what? It was a physical manifestation of the vibrations that were coming from people who were in one accord and meditating and sending out these vibrations, and they made things happen. Is it getting hot in here? Would you turn the air? I knew. I felt the heat starting right. What's the first thing you try to do? You know what Jung says the first thing we try to do is we try to repress certain thoughts and feelings without inquiring of the child, why do you feel that way? Why are you thinking that way? We simply go and repress them, see? And this is what the first thing you say when the child says, you don't really think that. You don't really think that, young man. And then all of a sudden say, yeah, no. I know, because if you were in school where I went, if you said you really did think that, they'd smack you. So I say, no, I don't think that. But you really do. You see what he's saying? I'm going to tell you I don't, but I really do. I used to hide out. You know, when I tell you my story, when I used to go in the front door of the school and then wave my hand to go to the bathroom, go out the back door, they didn't see me for 3 months, I'd go into the woods. I'd hide out in the woods because I did think that way. I couldn't tell the people what I thought. I couldn't tell the people that Jesus didn't get killed by God. How could I tell them that? What would happen? I mean, you know, years ago, they burned people alive for saying that kind of stuff. But I had to live. I had to create. So don't you see? Don't you? I had to create a person that didn't exist to please the system. It wasn't me. I had to put on a Halloween costume and say, see, I'm one of you. But I wasn't. So Carl Jung says, what else do we say? We say, big boys don't cry. Yeah, big boys do cry. Did you watch the ball game, the World Series the other day? Paul Molitor was the big hero of the World Series, and they showed you after, and they were all hugging one another, and tears come down his eyes. Big boys do cry. But we never understood. And see, the thing is, I'm a macho dad. I want my boy to be strong. And men don't cry. And so what you've done, you've ripped out from that person the very thing that is God-given to receive and to allow those inner expressions to flow. And you say, don't. Stop it. Plug it up. You carry the shadow. How about this one? Don't touch yourself there. I didn't think she was looking. Never touch yourself there. How about, I never want to hear you say that again. So you know what you'll do? You'll never say that again in front of them. You'll find people that you can relate to and say it in front of them. This is a good one, too. We don't act like that in this family. We struck a nerve there. We don't act like that in this family. So we sure don't. See, and what Jung and Sigmund Freud were saying is parents allow their own subconscious desires to mold the personality of the child. If parents are non-intellectual, listen carefully what Jung says. If parents are non-intellectual, they see that their children get toys and sports equipment but no books. See what happens? I'm not into books, so you'll get baseball bats and boxing gloves and toys, but no books. It says their beliefs are shown in their feelings. Girls must be feminine. Boys must be strong. If their little boy carries something heavy into the room, what a strong little boy you are! Look at my little boy, you are a strong little guy. If a girl walks into the room carrying the same thing, you better watch that dress. You're going to rip that pretty little dress you got on. See? So all of a sudden we've created, and because the system says this is the way it's got to be. This is the way it's got to be. Socialization of the individual, according to Carl Jung, begins by the child observing, how do I get through life? How do I live? And what he says is they will either model themselves after you, good or bad, or they will revolt. And the revolution is because we are the way we are. And the reason we are the way we are is because we did not revolt. But we gave in and succumbed to others who were guiding our little lives. But we have the Bible, see. Religion, Christianity, come on Sunday. Here you are on Sunday. Isn't this great? Here you are in church and everything. Religious as hell, aren't you? And we're so religious. We have the Bible, the Word of God. We open the Word of God. And we say, let's open the Word of God and get some instructions on raising our children up in the way of God, okay? Would you please open your Bible, your missal, to page 558, please? The Word of God has something to say about bringing up children in the proper way, okay? We all read together, please, after me. You know, how in God's name could we allow these institutions to exist? Could you ever think of this? Violent, with 10% of their money, you're taking 10% of their money out of your pocket, teaching you fairy tales as reality, and you buy it. They fly, I want more of this. I love it. I love it. Here, let's get some instruction from God's holy word. Proverbs 22:15 is the first one. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it from him. Why? Not the hand, the rod. See? Foolishness is bound, but the rod of correction. Let's go to another one. God's word. 23, verse 13. Withhold not from the child, for if you beat him with the rod, he shall not die. Bleed a little, bruise, limp maybe, but not die. Remember when Koresh, and they were saying he was abusing the children? You know what he was doing? He was obeying the word of God that he saw literally. Let's take one more. Go to page 564, Proverbs 29 and verse 15. And it says, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings his mother to shame. Mommy is all embarrassed, is not ashamed. Doesn't say that, you know, mommy screwed up, does it? So mommy gets the rod out and beats the kid to within an inch of his life. What would you do? You pray. Whatever you want me to do, mommy. Sure. I know you get beat up. Threat, fear, it's the same thing religion does. What do they say? If you don't do what I tell you, you're going to go to hell. What are you going to do? Sure, I'll do what you tell me. I don't want to go to hell. They never say, if you do this, you'll come into harmony with all of nature and the universe and the animals, and we'll be in beauty and we'll live and everybody. No. If you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. And not only are you going to go to hell, you're going to be in a fire, in a frying pan. And not only are you going to be in a frying pan, but little guys with horns and red suits are going to stick you. And not just for 30 days, forever! Because you went to the Trump Plaza. So 15 people are listening to this in the church, and 50,000 of them are at Trump Plaza. Figure that one out. See, in our culture, much of the Bible would be considered child abuse, wouldn't it? If you saw people doing what the Bible said, you'd call the police. Sure. But that's been the parental way for ages. But take a look at the result. Did you just read the scriptures? Now let's look at you know what Jesus says? Wisdom is known by her children. In other words, what is born out of the ways? You got a drug outreach center in every town in the United States. You got more drug outreach centers than you got AMPs. Because you've enacted violence. Religion is extremely violent. It has thrived from its very beginning on violence. And if they ever drop the violence and the fear and the guilt and the threats, they would cease to exist. And what you do is, first of all, you typically, according to Jung, the first thing you do is hide the forbidden behaviors from your parents. You think angry thoughts, but you go off into your own room and think them or talk to them. You know, when you get to your friends, you congregate, or you touch yourself. But only when you are alone. And you know what? When you're a little child, you're the only one who's discovered that. Nobody else in the world knows that. Don't let anybody see. You're in real guilt now. You're doing something that because nobody's allowed to talk about these things. Even you, look at how quiet you get. You're all staring. Nobody's looking at anybody. Look at you. You don't dare look at him. Him, and he's a... Touch yourself. What is there to touch? But you have found a secret thing. And nobody in the whole world knows this but you. So now after you open the door and you come out and look around and close the door to your room, straighten yourself up. Hi, Mommy. It's true. Sigmund Freud said the child will repress his thoughts and his personality so as to fit in your system. The ultimate price of obedience, according to Freud, is this: loss of wholeness and deep-seated guilt. You've come here in this little room to be part of the revolution, to thumb your nose at it, to break away from it, and to say that you'll follow the Christ of love and independence. You know what Jesus Christ did with the mobs and their ways? He took off and went into the mountains. Hang around with these people. They're crazy. It's like they're all looking for the second coming. He said, this guy's going to come back a second time after what happened the first time? No way. You going to go back? Oh, not me, Gotti, old father. No way. Those people are nuts. See, what God gave you a personality. And you know, mine's coming. My God-given original personality has blossomed again. You know, I don't have to hide anything anymore. I don't have to hide, do we? I don't hide anything. Everything's right on the table. And this is the beautiful thing. But the God-given personality that you have is not necessarily acceptable to your parents and to the system. It's yours, but they have. Some man has written a rule in the Dark Ages and said this is unacceptable. God says, hey, that's what I want you to be. Dennis, I want you to be a fakakta. No problem. No problem. The child thus creates what psychiatrists call the false, we're almost done with this, self. The false self. And what this is the nature of the false self is I minimize the pain of losing my original God-given wholeness, so I put together this new personality. See? And when I put together my new personality, because I can't live my God-given personality, now you're going to say, you're going to say, I'm a loner, I'm negative, see? I'm distant. And the reason of people say, you see these kids nowadays? Any day, you know, we all were part of it. They're distant. They don't mix in, you know. And I'm hiding. And the reason that I don't want to mix in, because the parents, the people, the system doesn't observe the wound that you and I as little children were trying to protect. All we see is the neurotic side of this behavior. And we're deemed inferior. But in reality, we're defending ourselves from further hurt. So then you grow, you get older, and the hurt grows with you, and the negative traits, though they're not a part of your original nature, they keep gnawing at you, because you've never been able to express yourself. Very few of you sitting in this room have ever been able to express that which is the God-given part of you. What do you really feel like? What do you really like? What have you really wanted to say? Everything gets forged out of a childhood of pain, deep-seated into people. And you see the result. The reason that there are bombs dropping on people, even governments drop bombs on people, they're all expressions of the hate and the guilt and the fear inside that separate. And if I can't take it out on myself and I can't take it out on my family, I'll take it out on somebody. And when I'm so damn sick of fighting with myself and I can't fight with myself any longer, then I'll fight with you. And we'll all try to say, why is this society so violent? We've created it because we wouldn't allow the God nature to take place and allow people to be themselves. So Jung says your original wholeness has been fractured. The loving and undefiled nature that you were born with has been broken into three parts. And the three parts are, one, your lost self. Go into meditation, folks, and you'll find yourself. you'll find that part that was taken away from you by the system, by the religions of the world, by Christianity, by your parents. It was robbed. You'll find it by going into meditation. The second thing is your false self. You know who that is? That's the part that you created to get along in the society that you live in. That's your Halloween costume, the mask that you put on so everybody will accept you. Yes, here I am. And everybody thinks that you got Bibles and all of this stuff, and then when you get home, when you can get into that, which is nobody knows who you are. Wait, just imagine if I was to take your thoughts for this week and put them on the screen up here, broadcasted to everybody. You didn't know I was a mind reader, did you? I've got it all written right behind here on the back of the book. No. But so each one of us, my God, could you imagine the things that I've thought this week? And Rose, my God. But see that, but you can't display things. And then the third one is your disowned self. See, it's the negative parts of your false self. You lost the original God self. You created the false self, which is the screwball self. Nobody likes that, so you got to disown that. So now you're forcocked. I don't know who I am no more. What? And you're going to psychiatrists, you're taking Valium, Librium, give me everything. I'll take 5 of these and 5 of these. I want everything because I'm a nut. I don't know what to do. Not that I say pleases anybody. What am I going to do? And the doctor you're saying is twice the nut that you'll ever hope to be. Because he's come from the same thing. He lost his God self. He created a false self. Now he's got to get rid of the false self because nobody likes it. And it's not his anyhow. You've got to come back here and go up here to that which is the true you, the identity of the true you. Okay? Chaotic minds, confusion, from home, from school, from the church, and then finally you come here. Right. You open the door, here I am. I don't know if I'm here, but I'm here. I don't know. Something's wrong, I know that. It's a, and so what we are little individual dump trucks. You come up, you know, dump it all, get rid of it. Dump it! Every good thing your mother and father taught, dump it! Especially the church, dump it. Dump it all. All of the sediments got to get out of the... I just wanted to end this 2 minutes with the Bhagwan talk, which goes into this, which is really interesting. And he talks about the big difference between mommy and daddy, and mother and father. He says it's very simple to be a mommy and a daddy, but to find mothers and fathers is unique because the Bhagwan said a mother and a father will help you to become yourself. Mommy and daddies want you to become projections of their own ambition. Yes, daddy. Yes, mommy. I want to grow up and be just like my daddy. And he's an absolute mess. Mommies and daddies want you to be projections of them. Mothers and fathers want you to be your very best self, whatever that may be. Freud said, listen to what Sigmund Freud said, if a person is deep in neurosis, you will always find a mommy or a dad at the root. Mommy and daddy want you to follow them. They want to possess you. They will cling to you. But mother and father will help you become independent. They will not try to force anything on you. They will help you find your own truth, your own life. And I love this part. Mommy and daddy give birth to your body. Mother and father give birth to your soul. Buddha, Krishna, Jesus Christ can be mother and father if you'll only let them. Mommy and daddy is biological. Mother and father is spiritual. thank you very much for sharing this time with us on parenting, the beginning of trouble. And we're going to do the Bible in 1993. Right next, John will come on and tell you what the needs are for the church and for this work that we're doing here. And I appreciate all the support from all of you all over the country. It's really great, and we'll just keep going with it. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We do appreciate you, and we appreciate your support. And we just want to remind you that, you know, with the video network, there are so many expenses. We have the cost of the tapes and mailing, etc. And you know how much postage is now. So we would appreciate it if you're not a monthly supporter, if you could possibly be one. And if this would just like be a burden for you, then please, we don't want that. We want you to feel free that these programs are, you know, readily accessible to you. And if you can help support it financially, fine. If you can't, that's fine too. But if you do want to, if you would just let us know, you can let us know when you send your card back, or you can give a call to area code 609-971-0537 and just say that you want to be part of the video network. We also would like to remind you at this time, if you could possibly mail the tape on as soon as you're done with it. We just got back a tape the other day, and it had been out for 1 whole year. So, and then you all get upset, you know, when you're on the route if you have to wait for your tape. So if we could just expedite it a little bit faster, that would be good. Bill has comprised a book, and it's called Answers, a book of biblical responses to questions concerning the teaching of Jesus Christ in the New Age. And it deals with various topics of questions that you get asked, and you know, you're sort of at a loss of, okay, what does the Bible say? How can I support this? So if you're interested in having this book, if you would just send us a check for, or money order for $7, stating that you would like the book, we would be most happy to get it right off to you. People in the church have been